Let's bring on the director of a film you and I have both seen, Alan, only in theaters, and the subject of the documentary, Greg Laemmle, director RAPHAEL SBARGE. Welcome to the show. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
And Greg, thank you for years. I have so many great memories of going to your theaters, the popcorn, the snacks, the whole movie experience. You care about the theatrical experience. I care deeply about it. And this documentary is brilliant. It talks about your struggle and keep it not only the history of the chain, but of Laemmle theaters, but also how much you care about the theatrical experience and how getting through COVID being a thing. I was there day one. I was there when the theaters closed. I was there the last day. I saw The Invisible Man.
Yep.
And then when they did drive-ins, I went to the drive-in every week. Never missed it. So I am a theatrical experience guy. Love it. Okay, I'm done gushing because I love the whole theme of this film is how important theaters are. RAPHAEL, how did you pull this together? How did you meet Greg and convince him, hey, we're going to do this? And then you were thrown a curveball because COVID happened in the middle of making this movie.
Right. Greg and I met because I'd made another film about another sort of Los Angeles icon, which is the LA River. And he and I met kind of in the process of working on that quite by accident, which led to then another opportunity to kind of really connect with him around, trying to screen some of my movies. I called the Laemmle theaters and like a lot of filmmakers, got Greg Laemmle on the phone, and which is an astounding sort of thing to kind of get the guy above the title. When you call AMC, you don't get Mr. AMC on the phone, that's for sure. And so I was very taken by Greg, and then I discovered his family story, this incredible kind of legacy story that goes all the way back to the origins of Hollywood. Really is there's been a Laemmle in the movie business since there's been a movie business, and that is really kind of was my way in. You love going to the movies. You know how important Laemmle Theaters is in Los Angeles. For people outside of Los Angeles, there are, as we've discovered, because we've played all around the country at different theaters, theaters like the Laemmle theaters, not specifically the Laemmles and their story, but there are neighborhood theaters in cities around the country. And so they're special cultural, gems. And I thought there was an opportunity to tell a story about a family, in this case, a family business. And it just so happens that this family is theater royalty in this case, and then also runs a movie theater. And so that's kind of the journey we took. And then, excitement ensued.
Well, I'm happy to say I saw the film. Unfortunately, I didn't see it in a theater. I saw it as a screener. But the idea of this being in a theater is amazing. Greg, what's it like to see this story now play out? See your story.
Well, the story's still going on, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you later about that. But yeah, just now that the film is out there, I am fearful that we may be, there's rumblings that AMC may be filing for bankruptcy. It seems like they're doing well. The theatrical experience is really important. It's really important. And there's a filmmaker friend of mine. Her name is April Wright. You probably know, she's a documentary filmmaker. And she has a series of films about lost attractions, like roller rinks and movie palaces, bowling alleys. Drive-ins. There were, at their height, where there were like 6,000 drive-ins across America. Now there's around 300. So don't think that it can't go away. So this is just very meaningful. I just want to ask you what it's like to see your story on a screen. You're very much a behind the scenes person, but you're also very deeply involved in, you're going to book a movie to play at your theater. Someone will be talking to you.
It was odd. I mean, I didn't see the film until it was finished and premiered at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and it was definitely a crazy experience seeing myself, and not always pleasant. Um, but over time and overseeing it with different audiences, I've come to appreciate what a wonderful job Raphael did. In not just getting me, but getting everybody to speak from the heart and sort of, drop whatever pretenses we tend to put on. It's it's an honest film, and there aren't necessarily a lot of those.
Yeah, it must have been, Raphael, must have been, heartbreaking for you. You kind of hope when you're making a documentary that there'll be some drama, right? Because you're getting the history of the theater and the ultimate drama, having to close because of COVID. Can you talk about what that was like to be there for that experience? Oh, I think Raphael's struggling.
Yeah,
The internet's struggling. Oh wait, you're back.
I got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic. I mean, all of it. There were internal things that are dramatic, and then obviously the shutdown obviously played into this. What was remarkable was that Greg and his family said yes, and then even despite some of the complexities that came along, they allowed us to continue to film, and we were in many cases sort of in the room where it happened, where major decisions were had, or important phone calls, and that was sort of a remarkable thing. I mean, the fact is, as we know, movie theaters, even before the pandemic, were sort of dealing with some complexity. Obviously, streaming and TikTok and any number of sort of video games and things have sort of distracted people, perhaps from going to theaters, and the kind of the convenience of sitting on your couch has sort of captured people's imagination. They have, come back in truckloads, in gigantic truckloads, obviously this summer, and obviously over the past couple of years. Not to every movie theater, not to every movie, I should say, and generally to bigger movies, but the attendance and the box office has bigger in some cases than it's ever been. So the theatrical experience clearly is an important experience, and clearly I'm preaching to the choir when I'm speaking to you in this case, but it is, everything gets intensified. The the large screen, the lack of distractions, the fact that that you're there with an audience, amongst other people, where the screams, the cries, the laughs all get sort of amplified by virtue of the fact that you're with a bunch of people. And at a point, for what it's worth, here we are basically, hearing about chronic loneliness and people really being in a place where we have lost or are losing places to socialize. This is an opportunity to come into a space, come in as strangers, leave as friends, because you have this shared experience. There is something remarkable about it. It's important for the art form as a filmmaker, and of all the filmmakers I spoke to, they felt this, and some very kind of august filmmakers spoke to us: Ava DuVernay, Cameron Crowe, James Ivory, Allison Anders, Nicole Holofcener. These, every one of them was passionate about going to the theaters, going to the movies, and also then how inspirational and in some case pivotal Laemmle was in the kind of the determination of them becoming filmmakers. So these theaters are, I fully contend, are a very important part of the ecosystem that is, in this case, the joy of movies, and or also the art form. So it's, there's a cause that kind of bubbled out of the making of this, which is get back to the movies. But it is ultimately a story about a family business and this multi-generational challenges of running that as well.
We've got about 500 people watching us live on YouTube. We've got some questions from our chat for you. But before I do that, I want to ask Greg what your thoughts are on the current state of theatrical. I mean, I'm a person that I've always told people, I'll go see the big Marvel movies, I'll go see the big studio movies, but you have to have a diversified media diet. You got to go see your indie films, your foreign films, and that's what I've always loved about your theaters is the diversity of the types of things that you curate and screen. It's amazing. I think I saw a screening of RRR. This was last year
Sure.
at your theater, which was fantastic. I told all my friends, "Oh, you got to get tickets to this. We're going." So I love that.
Yeah.
But what are your general thoughts on the health of the industry now?
Well, it's a big one. I mean, yeah, look, there's no question that at the top, films are doing as much business as they ever did. Individual films. I mean, we've had Spider-Man: No Way Home, Top Gun: Maverick, Avatar. You know, these pictures are top 10 of all time box office. So we know that's fine. We don't have as many films in wide release as we did prior to the pandemic. And there is a lack of there's a lack of romantic comedies. There's a lack of adult dramas, wide release adult dramas. And the art house audience is also a little bit slow coming back, the traditional art house audience. So that family, that audience that would come see foreign language films, there's a segment of it that we haven't reconnected with and gotten them back into the movie theaters. That's of some concern. I think long term it's going to work, but some theaters may have to close in the interim.
Right. Let's go to some of these questions from our audience because I know they're as passionate as I am about this. I go to the movies minimum once a week. That's a minimum,
Right.
Usually more often. In addition to watching films at home, I get anxious when I watch a film at home. I don't, it's got to be, I prefer being in a theater where I'm not going to be tempted to pull my phone out. And there are even Netflix has some of their shows, they even admit these are shows where people just have them on in the background. They're literally not watching it. So here we go. Patrick Lemire says, "Oh my God, a Laemmle Hollywood royalty." So that's great. Zavin asks, do you think the major studios care about the survival of theaters?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the studios prior to the pandemic were talking about collapsing the windows, and there were voices within the studios that said that that they could do this, that it would they'd save marketing dollars by having everything go all at once, that the theatrical revenue would not be impacted, and that or that it would increase the streaming revenue and we went through an experiment. I mean, obviously in 2000, but even in 2021, 2020 and 21, when films were in theaters, largely we were reopened for the second 3/4 of the year. But they did not do as well as they did theatrically. So there was a lot of lost revenue there. There was increased piracy. And in fact, the streaming revenues were not as great. And now they're basically saying, yeah, we need the theatrical window. So I think the studios do care about theatrical surviving. But they're big ships. They take time to turn around. So moving production dollars from, supporting your streaming service to supporting theatrical is going to take time. And now we're going to have a further delay with the strike, of course, which will get resolved, I hope.
Right. Matthew Hammond asks for $4.99. How do you attract younger audiences to the movie theater experience that grew up on tablets? Do theaters have any sway in the types of movies made?
Well, I don't know that theaters have any type of sway on the movies that are made. There are, situations where they can have an influence on, films being acquired. There are many stories of exhibitors going up to, distributors at festivals and saying, you got to see this film. I want to play this film in my movie theater. Please distribute this movie. So, that can happen. In terms of younger audiences who grew up on tablets, they did, but they appreciate the movie-going experience. And if anything, younger audiences have been coming back to the theaters more than they were, than the older audience.
There is also National Cinema Day, which is coming up August, I believe. And once, that's a wonderful way to kind of bring, bring your son, bring your daughter, bring, your next door neighbor's kids, to the movies, and as a way to kind of be reminded about, wow, go to a movie in a movie theater, get the popcorn, enjoy the experience, and be reminded. It's it's pretty thrilling seeing things on a big screen.
And National Cinema Day or a Tuesday for me. It's the regular day,
Yeah.
And I do like those programs like Tuesday, or some theater chains have like it's a cheap day on a particular. I love.
We have $7 Tuesday, and we haven't been promoting it super actively, but it is out there. So when I hear people saying that movie tickets are too expensive, in many cases movie theaters are too expensive, but it's still probably the cheapest form of out of the house entertainment that you can get. And if you're searching for, if you don't need to go on Friday or Saturday night or be there, the first night of a movie, you're going to find a cheap ticket.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Just want to ask.
Go ahead, Alan.
The Laemmle, they show a lot of indie films. Do you have a piece of advice for indie filmmakers who are lucky to get into your theater in terms of how to promote their films and build an audience to bring to the theater?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, this film plays, everybody loves this movie," it's like with an indie film, I kind of want to know. It's like politics. You really need to know who your base is. Who are the people who you can absolutely reach? Who are the people that really should be seeing this movie? And start there. But you neglect your base at great risk in politics, and you neglect your base. With platform releases or limited release films. I mean, really hone in on what what is the primary audience for that film. Hit that audience hard. Make sure they know about it. Make sure they're there. And then if you can build beyond that, great. But don't just assume that you're because you have a surfing film that every surfer is going to show up. You actually need to you need to start there.
There's two questions here for Raphael that are kind of related. I'm going to read them both because they're kind of a related question. Alan Horkin, who's a member, asks, Chris, if there's time, please ask Mr. SBARGE how he became a director after being an actor. And then someone also from Rumble asks, how does Raphael find the time to direct documentaries while being one of the busiest actors in town? So people want to know about your acting career, and how you balance that with being a filmmaker. I think it's a natural extension of being an actor to become a director.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, I've been very blessed with a career, and I've been able to, be an actor my whole life, and I'm particularly now with the strike and everything else, I'm very aware of the fact is that this is, I feel very blessed and fortunate that has been the case. The fact is, though, that even when you're working a bunch, there's downtime. There's time when you're looking for work or time in between jobs, and I'm interested in the storytelling aspect of kind of the work, and this kind of bubbled up out of kind of my sort of environmental passions, which were kind of where some of the early docs that I did started, and a desire to kind of want to go make stuff, working within the system that is kind of doing something regularly through a network or a streamer. It's a very long and painful process, and at any moment it can go off the rails because someone can say no. So the wonderful thing about docs is that you have the idea, you have a little bit of money, you've got some friends, and you can go. And that's kind of was kind of how this sort of doing this started. It's not for the weak of heart, to particularly be able to deliver it and see it through. But I do love it, and it has been a wonderful way to kind of express my passion in a different way. I'm still acting, and I've got, I probably have to direct people to IMDb to kind of say kind of what it is that's coming up, but I have some other things that are coming up, and I'm desperately sad that I can't talk about it, but I'm glad in this case, to be able to kind of really, the making of this film was a life experience for me that I'll never forget, and the ability to kind of really commune with these with this extraordinary family, with the people who wanted to talk to us, and then kind of the impact that it's had, which is kind of as we were making it, this kind of zeitgeist continued to kind of get more and more kind of hot, as it were, under the collar, which is, what is the future of movie theaters? What's happening? Where are we going? And how do we continue to sort of make them, relevant, because they're so important. They're so important to the experience as a filmmaker, as an audience, and they're, So I feel passionate about that, and it's been another privilege to be able to sort of speak about that, because I've this family and what Greg really goes through in this movie, which we filmed over almost 2.5 years, is it's we all went through the pandemic. We all been through some tough times. Greg did it with a camera in front of him, and so he really was very open to this experience and really embraced it. But what I believe you come out of at the other end is a sort of sense of mission, this sense of this family cares deeply about film and filmmakers and celebrating the art of film. Let me just say this one last thing, which is just to say, in terms of the inspiration of this story, which is, at a time when we are so corporate, so shareholders, so kind of things, the fact that there is a family that for 85 years has been supporting artists, the art of film, and and the audiences that love them, for almost 100 years. This is a singular act of sort of astounding courage and dynamic kind of grace in that they are determined to continue to bring us these extraordinary pieces of art and the filmmakers. And where else does that happen? What at this point, when it's all about the things that don't matter, that is about not making contact, about technology has given us the ability to be completely alone and feel like we're making connections. This is a family that has made connections and has literally changed people's lives because of what they've done, and set careers, created, really literally launched armies, with kind of the opportunity to bubble up through a theater. This is an important thing, and it seemed like something really worth celebrating and bringing attention to.
Well, and I want to thank Greg for in the film. I mean, you so lay your life and your family bare through the course of the film. I mean, you see, you're in the kitchen, you're doing very personal moments. You opened yourself up. And also just thank you, because I moved from Michigan. I grew up in Michigan, and I would have to drive to the Detroit Institute of Arts or very far to go see, quote, art films or indie films like early Spike Lee and Jim Jarmusch movies. And when I came to LA, I was in heaven, like, look at all these movie theaters. Look at everything comes to Los Angeles first. So just thank you for that. A few more questions here, two that are related. I'm going to read them back to back. Jonah Hex asks, I wonder how Gen Z is with attendance. I take my kid to the theater, but he seems to prefer being in his room with his video games. And Solomon Thornton, kind of on that note, asks, do you believe theatrical release will still be a thing in 10 years?
I absolutely believe theatrical release will be a thing in 10 years.
Yeah.
It may evolve, but if movie theaters weren't going to come back, the pandemic really would have killed it, and they haven't killed it.
Yeah.
They just have not. So I don't, getting movies at home is nothing new. If it's coming via streaming instead of via Blockbuster, or that little red envelope that used to go out, or or on a VHS tape. I mean, we've been dealing with the tension between people seeing things at home and seeing things in a movie theater, and for 60, 70 years. So I think theatrical has survived. Theatrical will continue to survive. That's my belief.
Yeah. The nerd
doesn't mean it's easy right now.
The nerd far away asks, greetings, gentlemen. What should the industry be doing to keep the theaters alive?
Well, more movies, more wide releases would be great. Just not a ton, but a few more, and a more diverse. You went months between Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, to Mario, without a single kids family film in release, or almost a single family film in release. And they're both huge hits. So there's an audience that wants to see things, and we just need to keep them more frequent, because it's the kind of activity that is best enjoyed repetitively. So I think we need that diverse, full array of films. We need those adult dramas, not just in November and December for the Academy. We need them year round.
Yeah, I was surprised at the success of Oppenheimer. Just why would you release? It's an Oscars movie. It's a drama. Why are they dumping it in the middle of the summer? Turned out to be the smartest move ever. Really smart. So more questions here, just a few more before we wrap up. From Rumble, Ellis24, was there ever a temptation for the Laemmle family to expand their theaters beyond the LA area up to San Francisco or out east to New York City?
We considered it. And in many cases, we didn't pursue it because we, had respect for the exhibitors that were operating in those communities. We're kind of like this little family, and if Mel Novikov is running the theaters in San Francisco, or the Pettis family is running the theaters in Washington, D.C., that's, you support your local exhibitor. Also, look, we just had this vision that movie theaters, and this goes back to my grandfather, that art films it could play in more than just the the boho neighborhoods, that people in the suburbs would enjoy art films. And Los Angeles has expanded and grown in ways where there was just a natural need to expand in Los Angeles. And if we were going to prioritize where we were adding new theaters, we wanted to prioritize being in Los Angeles.
Well, one final comment, I think is a great thing to end on here, and I have a question for you. Davina Duckworth says, looking forward to seeing only in theaters. And so how can people see the film?
Yeah, it is available now on DVD, but it's also through Kino Lorber, but it is also now on Amazon, so you can rent it there. And it is also on various other streamers like Apple, etc. It is, you can go to our website, onlyintheaters.com, and you can find a lot of information. We were critically a critical success over the course of this past year, playing the 80 theaters that we did, opening in New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco and Boston. And if you like the film, I encourage people to kind of go on Rotten Tomatoes and or wherever and let us know what you think. It helps us.
Find somewhere on JetBlue, you can catch it there as well.
Wait, it's playing on JetBlue. Oh, that's great. That's
Had
great.
a lot of fun on JetBlue.
Okay,
yeah.
I found the website. Here we are, now available on Amazon and on demand. There you go, at onlyintheaters.com. So check that out. I got to say, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the show. Greg, just have appreciated you for years. Everyone, I don't know if I've ever, I don't know if we've met, but I know who you are. And but I know people. Everyone I've talked to who has had interaction with you speaks very highly of you. So thank you very much for what you do. I think it's very important. I think we're seeing maybe the death of shared experiences in some form. And I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think it's going away. I think it's going to evolve. And you're right. You've been competing with television. Okay. Television, radio. This did not kill movie theaters. DVD didn't kill movie theaters. Neither did Laserdisc or cable TV. It's just a new thing. And shared experiences cannot be underestimated how important they are. Yeah. I have so many memories of seeing certain movies for the first time. I can tell you what theater, what day I saw it. Really important stuff. So congratulations on the film. And I can't wait to check it out again. So awesome.
Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you both. We appreciate it. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Cheers.